This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Gunnar Shabbos Rabbi Sai, as we prepare for Parshas Va'era. So we have over here an amazing idea. Pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem Moshe, Kaved Leiv Paro." Paro's heart is heavy. Me'ein l'shalacham. He refuses to send out the people. And this idea of Paro's heart being hardened and being heavy is enumerated many times. And here they are. You have this pasuk, Kaved Leiv Paro Me'ein l'shalacham. And we have Vayar Paro ki hoysar vacha v'hachbed es liba. Vayachbed Paro es liba. Vayachbed Leiv Paro. Vayichbad liba hu v'avadav. And Parshas boy al Paro ki ani hichbadeti es liba. So Paro definitely had a lot of artery coagulation, a lot of clogging of the heart. He had a hardened heart. Why do we refer to his heart as his heart hardened? The Medrash says in the Yalkut Shemaini, a very interesting story, an interesting maisa. Amru mashal lama hadavar daima. What is this comparable to? Le'ari v'chayos v'shual shayhochem mesvina. You had a whole group of animals traveling. The lion, some other chayos, maybe some bears, we don't know exactly, and a fox. And they're all going on a trip. And they're about to get on a boat. And all of a sudden, the guy at the front of the boat, he's a donkey, right? So what's the donkey doing there? The same way the lion and the fox are going on a trip, that's why the donkey is the head of the boat. And the donkey says, pay up your taxes. The donkey collected a tax. So the Amar Lehem Chamor, Tnuli Meches, give me the taxes. So the fox said, what a chutzpah you are, what a brazen guy you are. Don't you know the king of the animals is traveling with us and you're charging the king taxes? You mechutzaf. So the shual says, the donkey says, look, I'm collecting from the king, I'll put it in the king's treasury, no problem. The lion did not like that. The lion said, bring me this captain. And the lion went ahead and he ripped apart the donkey. Okay? He ripped apart the donkey and he gave it to the fox to take care of. He tells the fox, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Arrange for me this guy's limbs. Set it up nicely for me. What does the shul do? What does the fox do? He sees the lave. He eats the heart. When the lion comes, he sees, like a butcher store, all the limbs are arranged nicely. You have the ribs and the steak, yeah? Where's the heart? Well, he says, Amar lei, libay shel shoyta zeh heichanu. Where's the fool's heart? The fox says, my master, the king, this animal didn't have a heart. If he had any heart, he would have had enough chachma not to ask you for taxes. This is an animal with no lave. So too Parai. So too Parai. Parai also had no heart. He had no chachma. He was a shaita. A very interesting medrash. The same way the donkey had no heart, Paro had no heart. Now, just as a halachic discussion, the Shalos HaTshuvas of the Chacham Tzvi brings down a story about a butcher who opened up an animal, and there was a cat sitting on the table, down below the table, and lo and behold, he cuts open the animal, and there's no lave. Is this animal a treifa? Or is it possible that maybe the heart fell out into the cat's mouth? The cat was sitting there licking his chops on the floor. Is it possible for an animal not to have a heart? And the Chacham Tzvi comes out, no. You must have not seen that when you opened up the stomach, the cat snatched the heart. And most poskim say it's not possible for an animal not to have a heart. This is discussed in the Shalos HaTshuvas Chacham Tzvi, Siman Ayin Dalet to Siman Ayin Zayin. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in the Kreisi Uplesi in Siman Mem, Sivkat and Daled, Panameiros. But it would seem from this medrash an animal could live without a heart. Otherwise, why didn't the lion say to the fox, what do you mean this animal has no heart? An animal can't live without a heart.
What does a lion know about biology?
But the fact that the lion did not respond that way, it would seem that it's possible for an animal to live without. But let's put that aside. What is the deeper meaning of this medrash? What is this medrash trying to teach us? And what does it have to do with Parai? So I came across, I saw it quoted in the Chidushei Chassam Sofer Masechta Psachim and Daf Zayin Amud Beis. And that is, and this is an idea we once mentioned in Parshas Balak, that every human being has three elements to him. He has the neshama, which is in the mayach. The soul is in the mind, in the brain. And you have the ruach, which is in the lave. You have the living spirit in the heart. And you have, and that's where taiva comes from. And then you have the koyach hatzoimeach, the ability to develop and grow, which is also an element of taiva. And that's in the liver, in the kaved. That's in the liver. And these are the three main avarim of a person. The mayach, the lave, and the kaved, which are Rashi Tevos, melech, king. A king is someone who puts his mayach first, and then he puts his lave, and then he puts his liver, his kaved. In other words, his first priority is his neshama, his next priority is the health of his guf, and the next priority, the last priority, is his taiva. On the other hand, someone who does things the opposite way, kalem, that was the curse of Bilam. Kalem, kaved, lev, mayach. That's what Rabbi Yonasan Eibishter says, the deeper meaning of the curse of Bilam, kalem, kaved, lev, mayach, and how it was turned to a bracha, melech, usruas melech, right? And referred to the Shiur on Parshas Balak.
You can also say, Rabbi, if lev is first, you'd be a lemach.
Yeah, you could also say that.
Lemach, right?
Okay.
Kalem destroy?
What? Kalem destroy. Says the Chassam Sofer, there are different forces in the world. There's a doimim, there's a tzaimeach, there's a chai, and there's a medaber, seichel. There's a pasuk in Tanakh, melech shachetz, the king of shachetz. Melech stands for mayach, lev, kaved, the mind, the heart, and the liver. And shachetz stands for the seichel, sichli, which is in the mayach, chiyuni, the life, which is in the heart, and saimachas, which is in the kaved. Okay, so you have these three forces in man, the melech, the mayach, the lev, the kaved, which in the mayach is the seichel, in the lev is the koyach hachiyuni, and the kaved is saimachas. In other words, like this. A man is a sophisticated being. More primitive is a plant. You have plants, you have animals, and you have human beings. A human being has in him all the forces of plants and more. Where in his body is the force of tzoimeach? In the kaved, in the liver. That's the most earthly part of the man. That's why on Shabbos, what's the most magusham thing you could eat? What's the most earthly thing? What's the most earthly food? Chopped liver. Liver is the most earthly thing. The thing which has the most gashmi, the greatest thing which is a davar gashmi in this world is the liver. That's the force of a plant in a man. That's the lowest part of man. The part of man which he shares in common with animals is the life force. That's in the lev. And the most supreme part of man is the mayach, which has the neshama. Says the Chassam Sofer. You ready for this? Says the Chassam Sofer. What if someone has no mayach? If someone has no mayach, then all he is he has two parts. He has the kaved and the lev. And now he's like an animal. Someone who doesn't follow his seichel at all is like an animal. Because the part of him which he is greater than the animal, he is not using. What happened to Pharaoh? Pharaoh descended to the point where his seichel has been almost removed. He has no mayach. He has no neshama. You know what he is? Kaved, lev, Pharaoh. All he is a liver and a heart. But he has no mayach, says the Chassam Sofer. He has no neshama. Kaved, lev, Pharaoh. He's not a melech anymore. He's not melech Mitzrayim. He's just lech. Lev, kaved. Kaved, lev. He has lost the power, his superiority over man. Yeah? He has lost his superiority over man. But Rabbi say, Pharaoh descends even further. Pharaoh was so obstinate, and so stubborn. You know what happened to him? He felt to the point where not only is he not utilizing his faculty of man, of mayach, not only is he kaved leiv, but at the end of the Parsha, ki ani hichbadeti es libai, not only did I remove his mayach, but now he has no taiva even. Taiva comes from the heart. His taiva was what? He really wanted to set us free. That's what he really wanted. But Hashem says, I'm not even going to let him utilize his taiva, what he really wants. I'm going to harden his heart so much, where all he is a kaved. So he lost his mayach. And you know what else I did? V'hichbadeti es libai, I also hardened his heart. So now all he is he's one big piece of a liver. So listen to this analogy. You ready for this? The same way the animals on the boat, the fox says to the lion that, look, we're animals here. We don't start out with a mayach. We have no mayach at all. What are we? We're just a kaved and a lave. But this chamor, he doesn't recognize the king of the animals, so he's missing even something that animals know. So he's missing his what? He's missing his lave. So to Pharaoh, the same way this chamor is missing a lave, Pharaoh is missing his mayach. He's missing his mayach.
And now his lave.
And now, yeah. Okay. So says the Chasam Sofer. Says the Heilige Chasam Sofer. Ready for this? The pasuk says in the beginning of Bay al Paroi ki ani hechbarati es libai besleiv avadav laman shisi oisoisai ela bekerbai. Says the Baal HaTurim, the word shisi is spelled incorrectly. Shisi should be spelled shin yud taf yud, but it's not spelled shin yud taf yud. It's spelled
with a sama.
Shin taf yud. Without a yud, without the first yud. Shtei. To teach, there are another two makkos to go. What are they? Arba and choshech. Besides makkos b'charis. Says the Chasam Sofer, I'm going to explain it a little bit differently. That not only did Hashem make one miracle where Pharaoh's mayach was removed. Yeah, some people have a brain transplant, but they never got the other person's. It was just removed, but they never got a new one. Not only is Pharaoh's mayach removed, but he also had his lave removed. So there were two miracles. You know, I ki ani hechbadeti es libai leman shtei oisoisai bekerbai, because I made two miracles in him. Number one is I removed his mayach, and number two is that I removed his lave. This is the meaning of shisi spelled without a yud. Says the Chasam Sofer, this is unbelievable. Normally, what's the way when you're sitting on a horse riding a wagon? The human controls the horse, who controls the wagon. But what happens sometimes where the human loses control of the animal? Then the animal is controlling the human and the wagon. But it's never going to happen that the animal loses control of the wagon leads the animal and the human. That can't really happen. The wagon won't have a mind of its own. Same thing with the human being. You have the neshama as the rider, and the lave is the animal, and the kaved is the wagon. Sometimes, really, the seichel is supposed to govern the taiva that governs the flesh and blood. Sometimes the taiva will go out of control. But you're never going to have the kaved be in charge. That doesn't happen. But it happened by Parai, where not only did he lose his mayach, and he lost his lave as well, and the kaved took over. That's why by the Yam Suf, Vayasar es oifen markevoisav, it wasn't just the horse was leading Parai, the wagon itself went out. Why did the wagon itself go out? That was demonstrating the fact that Pharaoh is not just being led by his lave, he's being led by his kaved. That was the symbolism of the wagons controlling the rider and controlling the animal. Normally, maybe the animal will have a mind of its own, but the wagon's not going to have a mind of its own. And in this case, not only did the animal have a mind of its own, the wagon had a mind of its own, representing the fact, Laman Shisi, because of the two miracles, that Hashem removed Paro's Moyach, and Hashem removed Paro's Lev. Okay? So this is how the Chassam Sofer understands the mashal to the Shual and the Shual and the Ari. If you look back at number 5, Chassam Sofer, Masechet Pesachim, Daf Zayin, Amud Beis, he points out that every human being has the Melech, the Moyach, the Lev, and the Kaved, and the Chamar did not recognize the donkey, the lion, and therefore he descended to a very low level, and he was like a Tzemeach. So therefore the Shual said that his heart is like a Kaved. He fell to a level below him. Okay, this is one way of understanding what happened to the heart of Parai. That's one way of understanding, the way of the Chassam Sofer. Now there's a very interesting Sefer, a very rare Sefer. The name of the Sefer is Zera Shimshon. It was written by Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Nachmani. Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Nachmani lived from 1706 to 1778. And he was an Italian Talmudist who flourished the latter half of the 18th century. He was a descendant. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Ephraim Cohen of Astounding, the Rav of Modena, and he wrote a sefer on Chumash, Zera Shimshon. And if you look at the print, it's not so easy to read. But he says the following. He says, what is the inyan that Paro's heart was hardened? What does it mean, Kaved Leiv Parai? Why does it always talk about the Leiv of Parai? Vayachzek Hashem is Leiv Parai. And hey, why would Hashem remove Paro's free choice? Is that fair? Says the Zera Shimshon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dealt with Parai Mida Keneged Mida. He didn't remove his Bechira, Paro removed his own Bechira. And says the Zera Shimshon, this is based on the Pri Chadash in Yardea, Siman Mem. Pri Chadash says like this. There's a Ma'aseh Shahaya that a bone was found in the heart of an animal. So the question is this animal a treifa, or is it a viable animal? And the Chachmei Ador were machsharit, because sometimes a deer, the blood in his heart hardens, and it turns into a bone. And therefore the Pri Chadash said it could be other animals have this as well. However, says the Zera Shimshon, it says the Pri Chadash, the truth is, if this is a verified tradition, we'll accept it. But we can't really apply it to other animals because only a deer could have a bone in its heart. But he says, I found in the writings of one of the students of the Ramban that no animals have a bone in their heart except for there's a certain kind of horse and a certain kind of ox. They have a bone in their heart because their bodies are so powerful, they need extra strength in their heart. So therefore it says the Pri Chadash that if you find an animal with a bone in its heart, you can't be matir it unless you know it's an ox or some kind of horse. So now we could understand what happened to Paro. That at first his blood was boiling and it hardened and it congealed like a deer. This is what it means, Kaved Leiv Paroi. His heart hardened. The blood began to harden. So Hashem saw that in his wickedness and his anger, his blood hardened. Hashem hardened his heart more, and Hashem put a bone in the heart of Paroi. Like other behemoths.
Human can't survive that.
So now we understand that by Makkah it says, Ki b'pam hazois ani sholech es kol magefoisai el libecha. Why does it say? Look at number 7. Ki b'pam hazois ani sholech es kol magefoisai el libecha. I'm going to send my magefos into your heart. Where do we find any magefa, any makkah went into the heart of Paroi? This is the makkah. The makkah was after Paro hardened his heart, where the blood hardened. So Hashem sent a makkah into the heart of Paroi, and a bone went into his heart. So you say, what do you mean? But only a deer and a horse could survive. Exactly. That's why Paro only has 12 months to live. Paro now becomes a treifa. Paro is now a treifa. That's why Rashi explains.
Chazal said he survived. Now he has a few assumptions.
Oh, we'll see. Rashi says that on this pasuk, this refers to makas b'chayros. Question is, this is not makas b'chayros. This is makas barad. What's Rashi saying? That as an introduction to makas barad, Hashem's saying, I'm going to give you makas b'chayros, and it's equal to all the makas. And makas b'chayros wasn't in his heart. Says the Sefer Zera Shimshon. Now we understand it very well. The meaning of as komagefosaya libacha means that Hashem literally attacked the heart of Paroi, where because his blood hardened and congealed, now a bone enters the heart of Paroi, and he becomes a treifa. So you say, what do you mean an ox and a deer could survive with the bone in the heart? Yeah, they could, but a human being can't. And now Paro is given exactly 12 months. And says the Zera Shimshon, this is the meaning of when all the Mitzrim complained, Kulanu Mesim. What do you mean Kulanu Mesim? Only the B'chayros were dying. Only the B'chayros. In fact, even though Rashi points out that if the B'char wasn't home, then the oldest in the family died. Yeah, but not everybody. No, but since Hashem hardened the heart not only of Paro but all the Mitzrim, now not only are the B'chayrim in mortal danger, but actually all the Mitzrim are now in mortal danger. However, in Yeshaya it says, the hearts of the Mitzrim will melt within them. V'nigev Hashem es Mitzrayim, nigay firipai. That when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, Hashem healed all the Egyptians who had this bone in their heart, and they reverted back to the way they always were. Okay, so this is a little bit of a novel understanding of the procedure that occurred to the heart of Paroi.
You know, what is the difference between Vayechatzak and Vayichbad?
Vayechatzak, he strengthened, and Vayichbad is we're learning now that his actual heart hardened. There was some kind of...
But the end result was the same, that he didn't want to...
Yeah.
So why in some of the Makos is Vayechatzak and some of them Vayichbad?
There's a reason. Okay.
Good job.
Well, I'm not ready. I'm not done.
No.
I'm not done. Now, I want to point out a few more things very quickly. There's a Sefer Degel Machnei Ephraim. Who's the Degel Machnei Ephraim? Anybody know? Degel Machnei Ephraim was written by the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov had a daughter, Udal, and Udal had two sons. One of his sons was Rav Moshe Chaim Ephraim, who wrote the Sefer Degel Machnei Ephraim. By the age of 5 years old, he was already known as a great genius. He was a Eloi Gadol B'Tachlis Halimad. His father says he was an Eloi Gadol B'Tachlis Halimad. At 5 years old, he could put all of us to shame. And in 1760, after Baal Shem Tov passed away, he became a Talmid of Rav Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich. Okay. So he wrote the Sefer Degel Machnei Ephraim, and his brother was Rav Baruch of Mezrich, the other grandson of the Baal Shem. He writes something also very interesting. He learns, Kaved Leiv Paroi, that his heart turned into a liver. His heart turned into a liver. He says like this. She'etzel Paroi on the 6th line, Nishapech Halev V'nasa Kaved. What's the reason of this? The reason is like this. We have a principle that from God, David, we have a principle, Kimei Hashem loiteitze harois ve'hatayv. God will never do anything evil. All evil, all bad, all punishment that comes to man is caused by his averos. Like the pasuk says, Ugmul yadai yasalai tiasreka ra'asecha u'tumagagenu b'yad aveinenu. This is the meaning. Why only by makas dam does it say kaved leiv paroi me'en l'shalach esa'am? Only by the makkah of blood does it say kaved leiv paroi. And why was the first makkah dam? You ready for this? Because it's midah keneged midah. What was Paro's chet? He had a heart. He turned his heart into a liver. Everybody knows the Gemara says you can't kasher a liver. Why can't you kasher a liver? It's molei dam. You can't get the blood out. So because Pharaoh hardened his heart and he turned his lave into a kaved. So Hashem says, you're increasing the blood in your body. I'm going to increase the blood in Mitzrayim. It was mida keneged mida. Now you ready for this? Chazal say from Makas Dam, Klal Yisrael became rich. You ready? You want to make money? From Makas Dam, Klal Yisrael became rich. Well, Pashut Pshat is because the only way the Egyptians had blood is they needed to sell their water.
Jews been accused of making
Right?
blood money for generations.
But there's another meaning of this. There's another meaning of this. And that is, Pasuk says like this. It says Hashem brings Nigoif Veripai. He smites and he heals. That at the same time Hashem is smiting the Egyptians, He's healing Klal Yisrael. Where did this makkah come from? Pharaoh hardened his heart and turned his heart into a liver. And a liver is full of damim. Now damim has two meanings. Damim is blood and it's money. So for the Mitzrayim it's blood, and for Klal Yisrael it's money, and more than that is a davar nelam v'sasam, and we can't explain. That's what he says. The Chassam Sofer al Torah also says this idea, that he brings down from the Medrash, Pharaoh's heart turned into a liver. Why does it say this by Makas Dam? Very simple, because the Gemara in Gittin says that if you cough up blood, if it comes from the liver, there's no takana. There's no way to heal. The liver, the blood of the liver is considered so venomous that it's toxic, yeah. So therefore, the Chassam Sofer is saying, Kaved leiv Pharaoh, he turned his heart into a liver, and that's where the blood is going to come from now, and that's why this makkah is considered so terrible. Okay, one last thought about liver and blood, and once we're on the topic, frogs. Now, you may want to cut out your liver course this week, and I don't blame you. You ready for this? In Parshas, next week's Parsha, Parshas Boy. Boy al Paroi, ki ani hechbadati es libai. Laman shisi oisoisai ela bikir boy. And the Medrash says he hardened his heart like a liver. Why like a liver? The Gemara in Chulin says that if somebody's liver, or if an animal's liver, spoiled, even if you only have a little kazayas of it left, near the gallbladder, the mara, I'll tell you a little joke. Since I kept you late, I'll tell you a joke. Okay? The Chassam Sofer was once giving a smicha test to one of his talmidim, and he didn't have time to give him a whole test, so he told him, how do you know if the gallbladder is in the animal or not? So Talmud said, of course, you lick it, you see if it's bitter. If it's bitter, then you know the gallbladder is there, and if you can't see it, it must have melted away inside. Chassam Sofer says, really, do you know how to do it? So he brings in the animal, and the guy didn't know where to lick the behema. So Chassam Sofer says, you don't even know the asra, the mara, and you want to be a mara, the asra? Okay, fine. So the Gemara says like this, that if you have a little piece of liver left, the animal is kosher. But by the heart, if the heart is missing even a little bit, it's a treifa. So listen to what the pasuk says. It says about the tzvardim b'cha uba avodecha, and Rashi says they went into the intestines and they croaked in his heart. Rashi says that. This week's Parsha. The tzvardim went into the heart. But wait a second. If the frogs are going to go into the heart, and they eat, even if one of those little frogs eats one little nakuda of Pharaoh's heart, he's a dead man. And he's not going to survive and see the other makkos. So Hashem had to preserve Pharaoh. How did he preserve him? He turned his heart into a liver. And a liver, if you have even a little bit left, you're not a treifa.
Yeah, but you can't survive with a heart, with a liver as a heart. Doesn't have the same function.
That's a kasha namaisa. Okay. It's a good kasha, but so says the Sefer Yalkut Ha'urim. Hashem, it wasn't a punishment to Pharaoh that he hardened his heart. He got to keep him alive. The only way the frogs are going to be able to croak in his heart is if he turns the heart into a liver. You see, the heart, you can't do with, if with a little bit out, you're dead. But the liver, even a little bit of liver is oichet git. So that's the limud. You know, if your wife serves you a little bit of liver, that's also a big oineg Shabbos. But this is the inyan of Paro hardening his heart. And according to Chassam Sofer, it means first he got rid of his mayach, and then he got rid of his lave, and Hashem demonstrated that by the wagons carrying out Paro and the rider to show that Paro is completely controlled by his kaved. Rabbi say, Agen Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.